For 7 years, the daughter of the most feared man in the city lived in absolute silence. Adrian Blackwood could end lives with a word, control judges with a phone call, command armies with a gesture, but he couldn't fix his little girl's ears. Lily was 7 years old, never heard a sound, not her father's voice, not a bird singing, not even her own heartbeat. Adrian tried everything. Private specialists in Switzerland, experimental procedures in Tokyo, doctors who charged more per hour than most people earned in a year. They ran scans, tests, surgeries. All of them said the same thing: irreversible. Accept it. But how could a father accept that his daughter would live her entire life in silence, especially when she was all he had left in this brutal world? What Adrian didn't know, the answer wasn't coming from another expensive hospital. It was coming from the woman he'd just hired to clean his mansion floors, and what she found inside that child's ear will leave you speechless. Before we continue, hit subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. I believe this story found you today for a reason. The Blackwood estate sat on the edge of the city like a fortress. 15-foot walls, armed guards at every gate, security cameras that watched every shadow. From the outside, it looked impenetrable, a palace built by power and blood money. But inside, silence. Not the peaceful kind. Not the kind that feels like rest. This silence was suffocating, heavy, like something had died and no one dared speak its name. Servants moved through the marble hallways without speaking. Their footsteps were soft, calculated. They'd learned quickly. Mr. Blackwood liked things quiet. No television, no radio, no music echoing through the corridors, just silence. Because if his daughter couldn't hear the world, he refused to let the world make noise around her. Adrian Blackwood sat in his study most evenings, whiskey untouched on his desk, staring at the portrait above the fireplace. There she was, his wife, Elena. Her smile frozen in oil paint, her eyes still bright, still alive. Next to her, a younger version of himself, before the violence, before the empire, before everything turned cold. And between them, Lily, 3 years old in the portrait. Before Adrian understood that his precious daughter would never hear her mother's name. Elena died the day Lily was born. Complications during delivery, that's what the doctors called it. Too much bleeding. Too little time. Adrian held her hand while the light faded from her eyes. She'd been trying to say something. Her lips moved, forming a word, but no sound came out. Just like their daughter, Adrian never forgave himself. If he'd chosen a different hospital, if he'd paid more attention, if he'd been stronger, smarter, faster, maybe Elena would still be here. Maybe Lily would be different. The guilt sat on his chest like a stone he couldn't lift. So he did the only thing a man like him knew how to do. He spent money. Millions of dollars. The best specialists on Earth. Flights across oceans. Hotels that cost more per night than most families earned in a year. Every doctor said the same thing. Your daughter's deafness is congenital. There's nothing we can do. You need to accept this, Mr. Blackwood. Accept it. How could he accept that his little girl would never hear him say, "I love you"? How could he accept that she'd never hear her father's voice tell her she was safe? So Adrian kept searching, kept writing checks, kept hoping that somewhere out there someone had the answer. He didn't realize the answer wasn't coming from a specialist with credentials and degrees. It was coming from someone he'd never think to look at twice. Someone who was about to walk through his front door with nothing but desperate need in her heart and a secret she couldn't afford to tell. Her name was Clara Livingston, and she was about to change everything. Clara Livingston arrived on a cold Monday morning in October. The sky was gray, threatening rain. She stood at the security gate of the Blackwood estate, clutching her worn leather bag with both hands, trying to steady her breathing. This was it. Her last chance. Back in the Bronx, her younger sister Maya was hiding in their apartment. The loan sharks were circling. 3 months overdue on a debt their father left before he disappeared. $15,000. Money Clara didn't have. Money she'd never have working normal jobs. The letter had been clear: pay by the end of the month, or we'll take payment another way. Clara knew what that meant. She'd seen what happened to families who couldn't pay. Her sister was only 16, still in high school, still had dreams. Clara couldn't let those animals touch her. So when she saw the listing, private household staff needed, salary $8,000 per month, discretion required, she applied immediately. She didn't care that it was for a Mafia boss, didn't care about the dangerous reputation. She just needed the money. The head of security, a man named Victor, met her at the entrance. Stone face, cold eyes, the kind of man who'd killed before and would kill again without hesitation. "You're the new maid?" "Yes, sir." "Clara Livingston." Victor studied her for a long, uncomfortable moment. "Mr. Blackwood has rules. You'll clean. You'll stay invisible. You don't speak unless spoken to. You never ever approach the girl without permission. Understood?" Clara nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. I understand." "Do you?" Victor stepped closer. His voice dropped to something dangerous. "Because the last woman didn't. She tried to get too friendly with Miss Lily, thought she could help, thought she knew better." Clara's throat tightened. "What happened to her?" "She's not here anymore." Victor's eyes were dead serious. "And no one knows where she went." The threat was clear, crystal clear. Clara swallowed hard. "I'm just here to work, sir. Nothing more." Victor studied her for another moment, then nodded slowly. "Good. Follow me." As they walked through the mansion, Clara kept her eyes down, but she couldn't help noticing things. The silence, so thick it felt alive. The way other servants moved like ghosts, never speaking, never making eye contact. The marble floors, so polished, they reflected everything like dark mirrors. The expensive art on the walls that no one stopped to look at. And then she saw her. A small girl sitting on the grand staircase, arranging toy horses in a perfect line, light blonde hair falling around her face. Large blue eyes focused intensely on her task. She didn't look up when they passed, didn't acknowledge anyone. But what caught Clara's attention was something else. The way the girl kept touching her right ear, just briefly, like a reflex, and the tiny wince that crossed her delicate face each time she did. Clara's chest tightened. She'd seen that look before, that gesture, years ago when her cousin had ear infections that went untreated because they couldn't afford doctors. "Pay attention," something whispered in her heart. "Pay attention." Clara didn't say anything, just kept walking. But her mind was already working, already noticing, already questioning what everyone else seemed to have stopped seeing. She didn't know it yet, but that small observation, that single moment of attention, was about to unravel everything, and cost her everything she had. Days turned into weeks. Clara learned the rhythm of the Blackwood mansion, the silent rhythm of fear and routine. She mopped floors that gleamed like black ice, polished silver that no one used, dusted furniture in rooms where no one sat, and she watched Adrian Blackwood. The man was a ghost in his own home. He moved through corridors like a shadow, always dressed in expensive suits, always surrounded by men who carried guns under their jackets. His face was carved from stone. Sharp jaw, cold eyes, the kind of man who'd seen death so many times it no longer registered as something remarkable. But when he looked at Lily, everything changed. Clara saw it happen one morning. Adrian was walking past the sunroom where Lily played with her toy horses, arranging them in careful patterns on the Persian rug. He stopped. Just stopped. His whole body went still. And for exactly 3 seconds, his face cracked open, raw grief, desperate love, helpless fear, all bleeding through at once. Then he closed it, locked it down, walked away without going in. That's when Clara understood. Adrian Blackwood wasn't just a father who couldn't fix his daughter. He was a man slowly drowning in his own powerlessness, and he'd built this fortress of silence because if he couldn't give Lily sound, he'd eliminate it for everyone else too. The mansion had rules, unspoken rules. No loud footsteps, no slamming doors, no raised voices. The television stayed off, the radio stayed silent. Even the grandfather clock in the main hall had been disconnected, its pendulum frozen mid-swing. Everything was muffled, controlled, dead. Clara heard the stories from the other servants, whispered in the kitchen during brief moments when Victor wasn't watching. Adrian had spent 7 years searching for a cure, 7 years and $40 million. He'd flown specialists in from Berlin, Tokyo, Geneva. Brought experimental equipment that cost more than small hospitals. Lily had been poked, prodded, scanned, tested. Nothing worked. The last doctor, some renowned specialist from Johns Hopkins, had sat Adrian down in his study and delivered the final verdict. Clara had been dusting in the hallway. She'd heard every word through the door. "Mr. Blackwood, your daughter's auditory nerves show no response. The damage is complete and irreversible. No surgery, no device, no procedure can restore what was never there. I'm sorry. You need to accept this." Accept this. There was a long silence. Then Adrian's voice, low and dangerous. "Get out of my house." The doctor left, and Adrian Blackwood stopped searching. That was 6 months ago. Now he just watched his daughter live in silence, and the grief was eating him alive from the inside out. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Adrian was away. The mansion was quiet. Clara heard a thud. Lily lay on the marble floor, curled into a ball, both hands pressed to her ear. Tears streamed down her face in complete silence. Clara ran, knelt beside her. Lily's face was twisted in agony. She tilted Lily's head toward the light. There, deep in the ear canal, a dark mass, swollen, glistening. Victor's warning echoed, "Touch the girl, and you vanish." But this child was in pain. Clara pulled the tweezers from her pocket. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm going to help you." She hooked the mass, pulled gently. Resistance. Then, release. Something dark slid free. Lily gasped, loud, real. Her eyes flew open, wide and shocked. She pointed at the grandfather clock. "Tick," she whispered. Clara sobbed. "Yes, baby, you can hear it." Then footsteps, heavy, fast. Adrian Blackwood stood in the doorway, face white, eyes locked on the blood on Clara's hands. "What have you done?" He rushed forward, shoving Clara aside. "What did she do to you?" Lily's mouth opened. "Daddy, I can hear you." Adrian froze. "What?" "Your voice," Lily whispered, touching his face. But Adrian's eyes landed on the blood, the tweezers. Terror overtook wonder. "Security, now!" Guards appeared. "Get her away from my daughter." "Sir, please," Clara started. "You could have killed her," Adrian roared. The guards grabbed Clara. Lily screamed. "No! Don't take her!" "Take her to security," Adrian commanded. "Call the police." Clara didn't resist. "It's okay," she mouthed to Lily. "You're going to be okay." Lily sobbed, the first sounds her father had ever heard from her throat. At the hospital, Dr. Reeves pulled Adrian aside. His hands were shaking as he opened an old file. "Mr. Blackwood, I need to show you something." The scan was from 5 years ago. There, circled in red. Dense obstruction noted in right ear canal. Immediate removal recommended. But no follow-up was ever scheduled. No procedure logged. Just continuous appointments, continuous payments, continuous profit from a little girl's silence. Adrian's world collapsed. They'd known. His trusted specialist had seen the blockage and left it there because his desperation was too valuable to cure. He found Clara in the security office, still wearing her blood-stained uniform. She stood when he entered, chin raised, ready to face whatever came. But Adrian couldn't speak. This woman, this maid he'd threatened to kill, had done what $40 million couldn't. She'd actually looked at his daughter, actually cared. He fell to his knees, not the Mafia boss, just a broken father. "Forgive me," he whispered. Clara knelt beside him. "She can hear now, Mr. Blackwood. That's all that matters." They brought Lily in. She ran to her father, and for the first time in her life, she heard him cry. Heard the sound of his heart breaking and healing in the same breath. She pressed her small hand to his chest. "Daddy," she whispered, "your heart is so loud." If this story touched your heart, hit subscribe and like this video. Share it with someone who needs to remember that sometimes the greatest power isn't money or influence, it's simple human kindness. See you in the next one.